You're all set.
Oh, all right. All right. We'll go back to it then. Let's see. Okay. So let's see. It's 6:42. Welcome. This is the June 2nd, 2020 Planning Board meeting. This is our first webinar Zoom meeting. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you everybody for getting yourselves organized to get here. We'll see what we do. I guess I have to take roll. So just give me an eye. Paul Amaral.
Here.
Janice Gomes.
Here.
Okay. Rosemary Eva.
Here.
Stu Hardy.
Here.
Dave Perry. Dave Perry, I see you. Can you hear?
Yeah. Yep, here.
Okay, and Peter Bramonti.
Here.
Okay, so we have Amanda and Adam are absent. We also have, where is he? Travis DaCosta is our solicitor this evening. I lost him again. We have Jennifer here as our planner AO, and Tara may be checking in later. She's. Oh, and we also have Rick Rogers, and we're waiting for Joe Cardello from Steer. Hopefully. No, Rick's here, right? Yeah, we just don't.
Rick is here.
Rick, can you hear us?
He is on.
It's muted.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I can hear everything. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, we're just waiting for Joe Cardello as well, but we'll go ahead and proceed. So the first applicant is Doug DeSimone, a release of surety for Harbor Ridge, plat 118, lot 304, Southside Hayden Avenue, R30 and R60 zoning districts, discussion and possible vote. Doug, are you able to hear us?
I just made him a panelist so he can talk.
All right. All right. Doug,
I can hear you.
you able to hear us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
You're okay.
Okay, good, good. All right, so what we have here is your request for the release of the bonds. Well, one is bond and one is cash surety for your Harbor Ridge development. So the first one I think we'll do, because Rick's online, is for the work that was to be done on Hayden Avenue, those developments that surety was set for $13,625 for a widening of this portion of the road. I guess, let's see, Rick, I guess we'd ask you to comment on that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Susan. DPW has checked the site and also reviewed Steer's final as-built inspection report. And DPW is satisfied that all items have been taken care of on that report that were outstanding, with a minor exception of there was one stone bound at station 3 plus 65.64 left that is a pin or a rod, and the developer Doug DeSimone has said that Deprete Engineering will be setting a bound there. So I am satisfied that the surety can be released. Deprete Engineering is the engineer, and they do various work in town. I'm not worried that they won't set the bound. So from DPW's point of view, the surety can be released.
Okay, so you're saying all the bounds in the development are in place now?
All the bounds shown on the as-built are in place.
Okay.
And they're not required to be set at the property corners, so that's not an issue.
Oh, all right. Okay. So what about the first one was the one on Hayden Avenue, that widening?
The wide, what was that? The 1 foot wide Cape Cod berm on Bullet Point 1. That was the one on Harbor Ridge. but the one on Hayden Avenue has also, that widening has taken place also.
Okay. All right, and yeah, that was for the initial, that was a cash surety, correct?
That is correct, Susan.
Okay. All right, the one question that I had, Rick, was that on the amended final plan decision, the last paragraph said that Commonwealth engineers had recommended restricting the parking on the south side of Hayden Avenue from utility pole number 3 to Main Road to enhance public safety. I drove up there today. I didn't see any, like, no parking signs unless I missed them. Do you have any information about that?
Yes, Susan, I would.
Oops, we just lost your,
Can you say that again, Rick?
we lost your audio.
Can you hear me still?
Now you're back.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm losing Susan, but okay. Yes, I was unaware of the no parking sign installation near Main Road on Hayden Ave. Who was supposed to install that sign?
Well, I assume it's a town road, so it would be your department.
Well, we can certainly install it if that's acceptable to the chief of police has to okay all signs, and the administrator, then DPW could certainly install it.
Right. I mean, you can check with them, but as I recall, I believe they were the ones that requested it. It was either the fire or the police department that was requesting it for, I guess, passage up that part of the road because it was narrow. I don't know, Doug, do you have any recollection on that?
I don't recall that at all. I know that I had to do the work at the stone wall, and we did that, I'm going to say in spring of 2018. I wanted to make sure I had it done before the school started up again. So that was done 2 years ago. So I don't recall the no parking sign.
Yeah, I know that I do kind of recall those discussions, and it is in the final plan decision, the amended final plan decision. So I would assume, Rick, if you check with the fire chief, the police chief, to see if they, I don't know if they require that. I don't, because it's in the decision, if it needs to be, if it has to be done, it requires it to be done.
Sure, I have no problem checking with Chief Marlowe, Chief Jones, and Chris as the administrator. And if people want it installed, then we certainly will do so.
Okay, all right. And I guess at some point, if you just can let us know, or I don't know who you need to report that to, if it's done or not. I just wanted to make sure it gets followed up on. So that was the one on Hayden Avenue. So I think the first thing, does anybody else, other members of the board have any questions? I know a lot of this took place before a lot of you are on members, but.
Sue, I have a question on, in the title block, was all that information taken care of? Subdivision name, assessors map plan, block, card lot numbers, street names, lot numbers, addresses available?
I know that was the punch list. I know, is that what you signed off on, Rick?
Is that all was taken care of?
Rick muted again.
Did you?
There he goes.
You chopped out, Susan. Did you ask me a question?
Yeah, I know. I think you did the follow-up on the punch list, right? That Steer had submitted on the as-built. So Dave was asking if all those items had been completed.
Yes, if you're talking about the 3/16/20 inspection report from Steer, those 5 bullet points were taken care of.
We're asking about the subdivision name, assessors map, plot, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's the checklist
That's
specifically?
the checklist. That was
Yes,
back on
wait,
316.
yeah, the red X, if you can hear me all right.
Yep.
If you plat, map plat block. The street names, lot numbers, addresses, if available, the street names are on there and the lot numbers. The addresses are not, but it does say in the yellow highlight, if available.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
The fire department assigns the addresses, I believe, so that wasn't on there. Okay. Anybody?
I have a concern. This is Rosemary. I have a concern. I was up there yesterday on the safety on Hayden. The traffic is rather fast coming down. I almost got hit head on because there was someone parked there. The other thing is coming out of Doug's new street. The stop sign is on the easterly side of Hayden, of Harbor Ridge, or whatever the name of it is. And the street sign is rather low and it is obstructed by a telephone pole on Hayden. Has anyone noticed that?
No, I didn't notice it. I don't know if Rick, that would be something for you to take a look at.
Certainly DPW can take a look at that. But we'd have to get an okay, as mentioned, because the police department and Chris have to okay all new signs.
Well, it is a new sign, but it's obstructed by the utility pole, and it seems rather low. If you would look at it, could it be on the same side as a stop sign? You could see it better.
We'll certainly ask. We're not allowed to move any signs. All we're allowed to do without permission is to replace faded signs. So we could replace signs with an approval from town hall, because there is a discretionary spending freeze. So if we get approval, we can certainly place or replace signs.
Okay. I guess if you could just follow up with that, then I don't know if that's going to, affect our final vote on this, but if you could follow through on that. I see Joe's on the line now. Joe?
He said he's muted. He needs to be.
Or is he a caller? I don't know.
Is he a caller?
I see his name.
He's
unmuted.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay, I'm
Oh, okay.
giving feedback between your phone and.
Yeah. All right. Well, what I wanted to do is, the first one is, this is a cash surety. So I don't know if anybody had any other questions about this. We're discussing just the one on Hayden Avenue right now. So based on what Rick has told us and what you have in your packets, if people were willing to move forward with a vote to release this surety.
Yes, I'll be happy to this is Stuart. I'll be happy to make a motion consistent with the recommendation of Mr. Rogers and Mr. Cardello that this particular bond, which has to do with Hayden Avenue, there's a second bond, but I'm just talking about now the Hayden Avenue bond, that be reduced to zero, that the entire amount be returned to the developer.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that, $13,625.
That's you, Dave. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Nope. Okay. All those in favor? Let's see.
Aye.
Can we do it by hands? One.
No, you should.
You have to do. All right. I'll do a roll call, and I guess you guys have to do it orally. Paul.
Aye.
Let's see. Janice.
Yes.
Rosemary. Rosemary, you're muted.
Yes.
All right. Stu.
Yes.
All right. Susan. Yes. Who's next? Dave
Yes.
and Peter.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So it's 7-0. All right. Excellent. So that's the first one. All right. Now the second one is for the. Sorry. The $146,000 that has to do with the roadway and the stormwater drainage within the development itself. That is a bond. It's not a cash estimate. So
That's cash. That's cash, Susan.
why do we have a bond?
Yeah, I think I got something from the treasurer that said it was a bond.
We had
It's
a-
cash.
I mean, that's-
It's in a joint account in the town's name. Actually, it's in an account at Bank of Newport, standing in the town's name. I actually earlier today emailed you all copies of the certified checks that I delivered to the treasurer. So
Did you receive that?
Let me go and see.
Because I have it, Doug, I just want to be clear, because I was under the impression it was cash, but what I have here is a performance bond dated January 22nd, 2019 for $146,000 for 2 years. And it's in your name, and it was signed by you?
that's correct, Susan. I filled out the bond form because that's what your treasurer required. But the surety is provided in the form of cash. So there is no insurance company. You'll see no insurance company sign that bond. I supplied the cash.
Oh, you did it, you did it like this, but it's actually cash.
Right, that's the form that the town wanted me to do. So that's what I did. I delivered 2 certified checks, one for 100 and one for 46.
Oh, all right.
I sent copies of them today too.
Okay, all right, we just need to clarify that. Okay, Jennifer's just checking on that, if you could just hold a second.
Sure can.
That's why I was confused, I was always under the impression, well, while we're doing that, Joe, do you want to just give your review of what you did of the as-built and any other comments you have on the subdivision work that you?
And this is, I didn't pull up my review. This is on the one that Kelly and I walked.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had sent out a review letter. Construction was ongoing, but as far as public improvements, we provided pretty much a punch list. Some loam and seed was needed behind the berm. Some loam and seed was needed through the detention area. We observed some bounds, but not all of them. That wasn't to say that they weren't there. They could have been covered. But we received an email, I think it was yesterday, Rick, from Rick saying he's walked the site with Mr. DeSimone, and all those items have been addressed.
Yeah, I think he said that before you were on. I guess we did touch on that. So he did say all those items had been completed that were on your list.
That is correct, Susan and Joe. This is Rick.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so the easement that goes back to lot 11 and 12, that one's completed to that drainage basin and all that or whatever.
That is correct. This is Rick.
Okay. Oh, Jennifer's having a glitch in there getting on the computer to get your email verification. Okay, so. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, what I wanted to do is after reviewing sureties for the town, Doug, I just want to let you know this is how the town processes them. If we vote to approve all this tonight, we don't release the funds at this point. You need to go to we send a recommendation, a positive recommendation to the town council. My understanding is that you want this road to be accepted into the town system. And then with that, once they accept that into the town system, then you would come back to the planning board, and then that's when we would release the funds. And I know this goes until January 8th of 2021. So it is still valid.
Susan, what I'd request then is that, that bond is there, the cash is there to guarantee completion of the project. The project is complete.
Right. But if you want this accepted,
Yes.
you would accept it into the town system. That has to
Yes, I would like the town very much to accept the road, absolutely.
right. And that's the process.
Tonight's meeting, you don't need $146,000 to guarantee my completion, because as you just heard, it's complete.
Right.
I would expect that you could release great majority of that bond tonight. And then after I go to the council and the council accepts it, you could then release the rest. But there's no reason for you to continue to hold my money. I have performed my obligations
Right.
completely.
Right.
I have a couple questions, Susan.
Yeah, sure.
Rosemary here again. When was the final coat put on, Doug?
Top coat was put on in November.
November, so it went through the winter.
That's correct. And the binder coat has gone through 2 winters.
Okay. Just built plan. That's one of the requirements that we have before we go to the council, that the town has it an as-built plan.
Yes, they've been delivered and they've been reviewed by Steer. Steer has made comments on them and they have been revised and delivered.
Does the planning board have one? I mean, Rick may have one.
Rick has one and 2 copies have been delivered to the town. I don't know who they went to, but
Yeah, they have we have the planning office has one.
Okay.
I think he delivered 3 sets.
Yep.
We have a set.
Very good.
So I have a question, Susan.
Go ahead.
This is Stu.
Yep. go
So
ahead.
I would point out that Mr. Rogers recommended that the Harbor Ridge bond be reduced to the amount of $15,000. And I'd like to know if Joe Cardello agrees with that figure. So according to this recommendation by Mr. Rogers, we would return most of the $146,000, but we would keep $15,000. So that would be like 130. We would return 131,000, keep 15,000. Does Joe Cardello agree with that?
If I may say something first, Stu, the 15,000 was prior to the loam and seed and the other work. So
the other 5 bullet points that Joe had pointed out. So you're now saying that we don't need to even retain the 15,000 because all of that work that Joe Cardello had written up, that's been done to your satisfaction and to Joe's satisfaction?
it's
Yes.
been done.
We had done Steer had done the final inspection. We wrote that memo with the bullet points of, you call them action items or punch list items, and we've completed that. And then upon that completion, I believe Rick and Mr. DeSimone walked the site, and Rick's acknowledged that the punch list items have been addressed to the satisfaction of the town. So we're certainly, support Rick in his decision and his comments.
Okay, I have a question for both maybe Travis and Jennifer, if they can weigh in on this. So I know this goes, what our positive recommendation is before we release all the funds, goes to the council for them to accept it as a public road. The other point that I think needs to be done before this is all completed is turning over the established homeowners association that's in the name of the developer to the residents. And so that we know that an active homeowners association is functioning. I think, we could put that as part of our recommendation to the town council in accepting the road, so that the infrastructure is the responsibility of the residents and not the town, which I think Rick will be in agreement with. So in that case, yeah, I wouldn't want to release all the funds, because I would want to wait until we make sure that the council has accepted the road before all the funds are returned. I don't know what might be reasonable to hang on to as kind of a, I guess, a security blanket or additional insurance. Doug, I'm not discounting that you're not good for your word, but I think we just need to.
No, I understand. So
hold this up till
I would just like you to, I know you deal with a million things there, and this is what I deal with, so my recollection's probably better than yours when it comes to this plat. Prior to recording, you required me to provide you and the board with copies of the corporate articles of association,
right,
for the homeowners association. We did that. Your council reviewed the homeowners association documents. They're all in place. They're all proper. That's all been done. I continue to maintain, cut the grass and do those kinds of things. There's some grass that has to get cut there, and make sure that the basins are fine. And I do all of that typically until such time as the town accepts the road. This is the way I've always done it. I think it's the way it's done almost in every town. So once the road gets accepted by the town, the homeowners, the developer is discharged, let's say, and then the homeowners take it over. So I would anticipate, I don't know when the council will hear this, but I can certainly, prior to the council meeting, get the homeowners together, have the first meeting, resign as the officer of the homeowners association, have them elect a new person, and provide you with some minutes of that meeting. I'm happy to do that.
And it will also be incorporated with the Secretary of State, Doug?
That's all done. And
okay.
Done, and you already have
copies. So we looked it up today, and it is recorded, and it is in the Secretary of State under your name, Doug. But I think that Sue was having a concern that when the homeowners buy it, they're not sure that they're responsible.
Oh yeah, they
Meaning the stormwater drainage area.
It's all in everyone's chain of title. Everyone there understands it, knows it. It's beyond me how anyone could not know it. Everybody knows it. Discuss the time of purchase, and it's in their chain of title that the homeowners association is there, it exists. That by purchasing a lot within the development, that they become a member of the homeowners association. It's a not-for-profit corporation. All of the land which constitutes the open space and the detention basins has been conveyed to the homeowners association. They own it. You required that of me prior to allowing me to record the subdivision. And that was all taken care of when the bond was posted, because you record without posting the bond. So this was all, you did all of this. I'm gonna say I recorded that plat just about a year and a half, maybe 14 months ago. That went very fast.
So I have a question. So if we release 131,000 and we hold back 15,000, and the town doesn't accept the road, where does that $15,000 go? It still goes back to Mr. DeSimone, correct?
I don't know, Travis? Let's read some input from you on this.
It would depend on the reasons why the road was not accepted. Maybe there's some different modifications need to be made for the road, and that 15,000. It's my understanding that Rick is suggesting 15 grand for maintenance of the area until the road is accepted. I don't think it's a cut and dry analysis if you say that the 15,000 would be for or not for the acceptance of the road. Do you understand what I'm saying? At this point, I believe that Rick's contemplating, Rick, you can chime in here, but I think your letter indicated that the 15 grand would be to maintain the area of the road until it's accepted and Doug's discharged.
That's acceptable to me.
And actually, if 15,000 is held, DPW would not object. But actually, the 15,000, Travis, was for work that hadn't been done. It was part of the performance bond, not part of the maintenance maintenance bond. So the 15,000, DPW has no objection to it being held, but there was not for the performance. The performance has been done with the minor exception of there's a pin instead of a stone bound, but that's certainly not 15,000. As far as the rules and regulations for holding any money prior to the town council actually accepting it, I'm not aware one way or the other about those rules.
Let me make a suggestion. This is Stu again. I seem to sense a consensus on the part of the planning board with Mr. DeSimone's agreement. So I'm going to suggest, and I'll put this in the form of a motion, Sue, if that's all right with you, a motion that the town retain $15,000, even though the checklist has been completed, but retain the $15,000 for any kind of maintenance work that might need to be done between now and the time town council actually accepts Harbor Ridge Lane as a town street. So the town would be protected with $15,000, which Mr. Rogers says he doesn't object to, until such time as we the planning board, make a written recommendation to town council, and town council actually votes to accept Harbor Ridge Lane into the town system. So that would be my compromise motion.
I'll second that. So we'll be releasing 131,000.
Correct.
May I ask that the motion be phrased in such a manner that upon the town's acceptance, the balance could then be released?
I'd be happy to. Susan, why don't you respond to that?
Yeah, once the council accepts the road, then you would come back to us for the release of the remaining funds in your surety.
Correct.
Yep.
We still have to come back to the board because we still have to vote to release it.
We're required to do that under our regulations, but there wouldn't be a problem.
Right, and once it's accepted into the.
Just trying to simplify it.
I know, the easy way. The thing is, I don't object to that. I think that's reasonable. That way we would see again after the council approves it. I think, I'm just trying to think, if you turn over the homeowners association from you to the residents as part of the process when you go before the council, then we would include that as our recommendation that you will be, providing them with a document in your petition to have it become a town accepted street, that now you have an active homeowners association by the residents. I think that's really important to get it at that point. Otherwise it kind of tends to slip away from our grasp and becomes a DPW issue. So if that's agreeable.
Okay, Travis, I can just send you copies of association documents. There's a deed already that the town's got signed by me for the road, and I can.
Well, we have all that. We have all that. That's all.
Got it all. I mean, there's nothing left for me to do, Susan.
What's important is that your response.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Doug, just what's important is that your responsibilities are discharged and there's someone else who's going to step in. That's what's most important. So we understand that we have those documents and we have the deed recorded, but we need to have someone to look to in case there's an issue.
Okay.
Right. So that would just say,
Do you know when it'll go to the council?
well, I mean, within this month, we could get the letter, our recommendation letter to them. So when they put it on their agenda is when they put it on their agenda. Hopefully, July or August. I don't know. I can't speak for them.
It's too late to put it on the 8th. I'm assuming they're meeting on the 22nd of June.
Oh, well, it wouldn't, yeah. I don't know.
It wouldn't be that soon.
I don't think. Well, if you got a letter to them that soon, yeah. So I would think within the next 30 to 45 days it would go before the council. But I can't promise because you never know. I don't. Do any other members of the board have any questions, or does this make sense to you? Are you following this circuitous route? Basically, it would be holding back $15,000 until the town accepts the road and a homeowners association is recorded by the residents of the community.
Makes sense.
Subdivision. All right, so Stu did make a motion to retain the $15,000, so that would release the $131,000 to Mr. DeSimone. And
Dave seconded it.
Dave seconded it. So is there any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, I'll have to do a roll call again. We have Paul.
Yes.
Janice.
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
Stu.
Yes.
Susan, yes. Dave.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
Okay. And those against? All right, 0. All right, so that's a 7-0 vote. Okay. So Doug, are you clear then on where we're going with this?
Yes.
All right, so what we need to do is request of the treasurer. Jennifer will do that, submit a letter to her to request the release of the $13,625. And
Actually, Susan,
yeah,
it's actually a little bit more than that because the money's been earning interest. So
no, that one hasn't.
the 13,000, yeah, the small one hasn't, the large one has.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Right.
So
yes,
just ask her to hold, the
15,000.
the 15,000 and release all the rest of the money, whatever she's got.
Okay. All right. And then checks will be pulled and sent to you.
I want to thank everybody there. It's a good town to work with and a little bit expensive. You get a lot of fees there, but everyone is really very nice and you got a bunch of really good town and municipal employees.
All right. Well, congratulations. And I guess hopefully we'll see you within a couple of months. And,
Yep,
and
thank you.
Once that letter gets drafted to the council, we'll let you know. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Excellent. All right. So we have Bob Johnson. Do you have him? Is he still? Oh yeah, there. He's muted right now. Bob, are you there?
I'm here now.
Okay, so we're going to go on to number 2, which is Island Avenue Realty, care of Robert Johnson. For surety for Rodway Estates, plat 904, lot 138, West Side Lake Road, South Side 4 Rodway, R80 zoning district, discussion and possible vote. What we have here, it was a 4-lot minor rural subdivision. 4 Rodway is a proprietor's way. It's a private road. What was required was it's a asphalt apron and 2 swales for stormwater drainage. And we were holding a $6,000 surety for the completion of that work. And this expires June 30th, 2021. Nope, that's not right. Anyway, so do you have any questions or comments, Bob?
No, everything's been done. Rick's approved.
Right, all
and the
right.
association's been turned over.
So you've turned the association over to,
Yes, to one of the owners back in March.
oh, have they formed their homeowners association, do you know?
I formed the association with the federal ID number.
But is their name on it now?
Now, their name will get on it the next time a tax return is filed.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we have, Rick, do you have any comments you want to make?
On March 6th, I did send an email, Susan, thank you, that the surety relates, as you mentioned, to the asphalt apron and the north and south side swales, and that they all seem to be functioning properly, were installed, and they're all acceptable to DPW. So DPW still has no objection to the release of the surety as noted.
Okay. And thank you. And this is a private, not a public road that's ever going to be accepted by the town. So there's no liability on the town's behalf for this or releasing of the surety. So does any member of the board have any questions or comments?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Joe, I'm sorry, Rosemary, you go ahead.
Go ahead, Stu.
I'd like to ask Joe Cardello if he agrees with Rick Rogers' recommendation that the entire $6,000 surety be returned. Joe, have you had a chance to look at the work that's been done at the entrance?
No, Steer was never asked to go out and do a final inspection. I'm just looking through the file right now, and the latest report, observation report we have is dated 6/15/2018. It was done by Marlin, and then Steer has not been out to the site since then, to my knowledge. And I believe DPW took over the inspections and was doing it. So I obviously would support Rick in anything he observed and his comments, but we have not been out there.
Thank you.
Bob, what is the status of all the lots? Have they all been sold? I noticed the sign was down yesterday.
Yeah, the lots have been sold, and that's when the association was transferred over to one of the owners.
Okay, so all of them are sold. The other thing is the cistern, that's functioning.
Yes.
Okay.
To my knowledge, I don't know recently, but I know last year the fire department was training on it once a month.
Good. There was a lot of activity going on there yesterday with the forms being set with one and some excavation being done. Looks good.
Thank you.
Anybody else have
So
any?
Susan,
Yes.
if you think we're ready, I'm prepared to make a motion that the $6,000 surety, that we recommend the return of the $6,000 surety, since the town has no liability at this point.
All right. Okay.
I'll second that, Stu.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? This one's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
No other questions? Okay. All those in favor, I'll go through a roll call. Paul?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Stu?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
Okay. Those against? No. All right. So 7-0. Right? All right. Excellent. That's approved. So Bob, we will get a letter down to the treasurer to release the funds and send them to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. All right. Next item is. Oh, is Bill Landry? Oh, yeah, he's there. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. Let me just read this one in. Item number 3 is Harkins Homes LLC, extension of master plan approval, Tiverton Heights, plat 110, lot 127, 797 Fish Road, West Side Fish Road, North Side Souza Road, R60 zoning district review and possible vote. Master plan approval is, no, that's not right. It was December 30th, 2016, I believe. Okay, so we have Mr. Landry. Are you junior or senior Landry? Which Landry are you? Sorry.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay,
It's William Landry.
it is. Okay, hi. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Just to refresh your recollection, this approval, I actually have it dated May by the time it got recorded. Maybe that's a mistake. May of 2017. In any event, the approval was stayed until the 1st of July of 2017 as a result of the state tolling legislation. And so the approval was good for 2 years after that, with 2 by right 1-year extensions for a total of 4 years for the master plan. We exercised the first 1-year extension last year. The meeting was held in May, I believe. And we have exercised the second 1-year extension by letter dated March 24th, 2020. And I understand my client has paid the corresponding extension fee. I don't believe the matter requires a vote. I don't think the board took one last year, but the statute does say something about an annual review meeting. And that is what I believe this is here, where we can tell you where we are. And I can tell you that the project has still not officially come out of DEM. There was a lengthy review there. There were responses to comments. And we're very confident that we know what it's going to look like. The stormwater management approvals and final wetland approvals, that is likely to emerge any day now. The Principe company has been building the preliminary plan submission based on the engineering that is the subject to those DEM reviews, and a lot of engineering that's not the subject of those reviews, civil site engineering. So we're very close to being able to submit for the preliminary approval as soon as the DEM approval is released. Under the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act, the state approvals only have to be secured by the final approval stage, but I mean, we understand that any engineering review the town conducts at preliminary, should be assisted by the state approvals of that engineering. And so it's our intention to file for preliminary with the state approvals, provided that they do come through as the staff has indicated they would very, very soon.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions by any members of the board?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Mr. Landry, I went by there the other day, and Deeper Tree Engineering was doing a lot of marking down there.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. I wasn't aware they were out there, but they are the engineers. They are, Dupree Engineering was doing the marking out there?
Yes, they were.
I don't know why they would have been on our site. I know that they have something to do with a party that's involved in this site on the corner on Main Road adjacent to this site. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? That's exactly where they were. They were on the corner of Fish and Susan.
Okay, that must have been it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Landry, this is Rosemary.
So,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is it still are you still going to do this in a phased development?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
It's been so long since we've seen it.
I know it's been a long time since I've seen it. I have to say I have not been intimately involved at all in the DEM process. That's all engineer driven. So I have not even seen the version of the plan that the client expects to be approved, but I expect to be seeing it shortly. But we would never roll out a 275 unit project in anything other than distinct phases.
The reason I asked the question was we've got some new members on the board.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Landry, this is Stu Hardy. You're entirely correct that you are entitled to a second one-year extension by the state by right. So the planning board really has no choice but to approve. It has been our tradition, and I remember this discussion coming up last year when I believe your son was actually in the hot seat. It has been our tradition as a planning board to vote. There's not going to be any suspense about how we vote. We will vote consistent with the state regulations, but we do vote on these extensions. We'll be voting again in just a few minutes on the next agenda item. So, Susan, do you would, I think, be calling for a motion
I think we're ready if
to approve
questions. Yeah.
So I'll just make the motion, and then if anybody else has questions, they can make it after the motion. I would move that the planning board approve a second one-year extension of the vesting period.
I'll second.
That will take us to June of 2021.
Yeah, June 30.
I'll second the motion. Rosemary here.
Okay. All right, so we have first and a second. Is there any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question. So that would leave 2 additional one-year extensions available? Is that?
No, this would be the last one-year extension.
Okay.
That we are required by state regulation to grant.
Right, because they had a 2-year vesting period, and then this is their second year, second of.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote. Paul?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Stu?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
Okay. And anyone against? Yeah. All right. 7-0. All right, Mr. Landry, you're all set for another year.
Okay, thank you very much. Hope to see you well before then.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
All right. Okay. Item number 4, I see we have Mr. Gillis. So Mr. Gillis, you can hear us?
I think I'm here.
Okay, great. Let me just read in your item. So it's Northborough Realty Holdings, LLC, extension of final plan approval. Bayview Condominiums, Plat 119, Lot 121, East Side Main Road, north of Sousa Road. Review and possible vote. The time clock expires June 30, 2020. So what we have here is a request for your application petition. I don't know if you just want to make a couple comments on why you're requesting the second extension.
Well, the engineering got a little complicated, and like the last hearing you had, I think we ended up taking advantage of some work that was done by third parties. Tetra Tech, I think is the name of it. And RIDOT had just released that information to us 6 or 7 months ago. And we ended up redesigning the entire stormwater drainage and ultimately turned what was supposed to be a 1.5 acre separate lot along Main Road into a detention pond. And that project was completed by our engineers GZA about the 1st of May. And I reviewed it, and shortly thereafter it was submitted to RIDEM. So we're awaiting RIDEM's comments on that. And unfortunately, RIDEM works on a schedule of their own choosing. So I'm not exactly positive when we'll hear from them, but our end of the work has been done and timely submitted. So unfortunately, I'm here to request an extension until we hear from them.
All right. Is it the portion that's right along Main Road? Because isn't that the commercial designated lot?
That is correct. That will now be used for a detention pond.
Oh.
And the amount of storage that had previously been designed to be underground as part of that lot is basically now going to be just a pond.
Oh, all right.
So we'll have to amend the plans because it stands as 2 lots right now.
We've never actually subdivided the lots.
I thought it was zoned as commercial.
I thought you did.
Those front lots, I think they are subdivided, and I think the front lots are along Main Road are designated commercial lots.
Right.
We'll have to look at that. I guess when you get it back from DEM, I think you'll need to submit that plan so it can be reviewed before it comes back before us.
Okay, you've got the plan, but
the one that DEM, after DEM does their alteration or whatever they recommend.
if there are any changes to the plan, we'll certainly submit that.
Okay. Oh, so there haven't been any to this. Well, all right. We'll figure out when you have your approval. We'll figure out where we need to go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're starting from scratch again.
Well, no, actually, it was quite some time ago that we redesigned the entire upper portion to comply with the changes in the RIP-Ds program. But it wasn't until we got down to Main Road and where that water would ultimately go that it got a little bit complicated. There's a depression on the other side of Main Road that, and nobody really knew where all of this water went, whether it went into Mount Hope Bay or what. RIDOC didn't know, RIDEM didn't know, and as I said, it was as a result of in-depth engineering by others that was finished not too long ago that it was all determined where the water went. And it was into that depression, which couldn't accommodate our flow. So we had to change our plan to have a detention pond on site.
Okay. All right.
I just have a question.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
the other side of Main Road would be almost where the entrance is to the villages of Mount Hope Bay, correct?
Yes, but the detention pond is actually a little further east towards 24 on the opposite side of the road.
Okay, so that's where those gentlemen were the other day from Deep Retreat Engineering.
I have no idea who
They
was
were in the
there.
woods right on the corner of Sousa Road and Main Road.
I don't know.
No, that's a different one, Dave.
That's a different one too?
That's a different lot. That's
Is this
already been changed. That was part of the refinery.
So this is up, yes, you're correct.
It's
So this
across
one-
from Little Bear.
It's up, I was gonna say that, across from Little Bear.
Right. It probably went to Carrie's Lane originally, years ago.
Okay, all right, I got it.
Mr. Gillis, the other thing I saw in the report was talking about the traffic study because it was so old. Have you decided what you're planning to do with that? Did you authorize them to update that, or are you planning to stick with what you have?
I believe they determined that that was now unnecessary. I think RIDOT's comments were ultimately fine with that.
Oh, all right. All right. Yeah, we'll just need that documentation since you raised that point at some point. So I think I'm wondering if you just want to go, if you want to get a full 1-year extension rather than 6 months. Yeah, I mean, you can always do it less, you know, if you get it done before then. I just hate to see you run out of time again.
I'm fine with going with 1 year. Hopefully it won't take that long, but RIDEM is particularly slow.
Right. That's why I'm just saying it might save you a trip back in here in December if for some reason there's another hang up. It's up to you, but I'm just.
No, I'm happy to ask for 1 year. I did not know that that would be available this time.
Yeah.
Sue, would it be appropriate for me to make a comment at this point?
Sure.
I'd like to just point out that back June 4, 2019, Northborough appeared before the planning board, and we did grant them the final of their by right 1-year extensions at that point. And I'm looking at the minutes right now, and Ms. Gill noted that this request a year ago would be the final extension allowed by the planning board. It's in the minutes. I remember thinking I'll vote yes because this is the final extension. I would like to point out to my colleagues on the planning board that this is a project that's very problematical. It was approved so many years ago that none of us, with the exception, I believe, of Miss Eva, participated. And there have been a lot of changes triggered by the new stormwater manual and probably some other changes in state regulations. Another problematical aspect of this is that the zoning board waived Article 5, Section 2B, allowing 52 units, I believe, to be built on a single lot. Zoning Article 5, Section 2B says that only one principal residence can be built on a single lot. I personally think that this waiver is legally questionable. I would also like to point out that that the traffic issues are not de minimis, that because of intense development pressure in this neighborhood, including the previous applicant who we were just speaking to, 275 residential units, abuts this property. The first item on the agenda is another development, Harbor Ridge, that abuts on this property. There's also been proposals for the 44-acre McGinnis parcel on the other side of Sousa Road. And of course, as we all know, the final Starwoods build-out section is just about to start construction, and that, I believe, is something like 16 units. So right in this immediate neighborhood, we have a huge explosion of new residential units. And I think the traffic is a huge issue, and I think we need to get the traffic right because it's a human health and safety issue. And then the final point I'd like to make is that back in 2008, we were operating under a very different comprehensive community plan. I can tell you that because I've been very deeply involved in that process from the get-go. We now have a new comprehensive community plan adopted in 2018, 2 years ago, that spends a lot of time focusing on this particular neighborhood. Look at the land use chapter. And I really think that we owe it to ourselves as planners to take a good, hard look at this. And we can't do that if we continue to offer extensions. I don't think we should go back on the word that we gave Mr. Gillis a year ago, saying, fine, you've got one more year, that's it. You were given a warning a year ago that would be your last extension, and I'm going to hold to that. I know that Mr. Gillis is not the original developer, and I think he kind of bought a pig in a poke when he purchased this property in this proposed project. But I really think the stakes are so high. This is such a large project in a very problematical part of town. The project itself is up on a cliff. The terrain is very, very difficult and requires a lot of extra engineering, and certainly doesn't fit the description of a low-impact development. So I think we owe it to ourselves as planners to keep the town out of trouble, to take a good hard look at this, starting from the beginning. Now, I understand that you have until the end of this month to record, but recording your project would require you to get the appropriate permits, and I'm guessing you still don't have the RIPD's permit. So I'm going to recommend to my colleagues that we not grant an extension.
Well, let
That's
me,
all I have
if
to
I could
say.
reply to some of your comments. First of all, I am the original developer and I did not buy a pig in a poke. Secondly, the reason this is delayed is because of third-party regulatory agencies over which I have no control. They've changed the RIPD's regulations and there's nothing I can do about that other than respond to them, which I did. My approval, which was long before any of the other ones you mentioned except for Starwood. I didn't approve any of these other plans. The planning board did. I was in line and I was second behind Starwood. So to say that you have approved other developments for 270 units or 55 units is not my problem. That's something that you, the planning board, did. I'm trying to comply with all of the regulations, and there's no way I can control how long it takes RIDOT or RIDEM. Part of the reason we ended up in a delay with RIDOT is because RIDOT is under a consent decree with the EPA for violating federal regulations. And we had to work with that. So I'm asking for the extension, not because we haven't done the work, not because I haven't paid the engineers or I've tried to do anything other than get this done so that I can complete the final approval. But I can only do that if I have an extension. I've got a lot of money invested in this, a lot of time, and I've cooperated with the board in every way I can. And it was approved for 51 units, and it's a great development with views. Yes, it is on a steep grade, but that's what affords the units the views of Mount Hope Bay. And it will be a beautiful development. There was nothing chintzy about it. Everything was done. There are tennis courts. There's a community center at the top of the hill. It's a first-class development.
Jennifer, can I, since you're kind of new for this, but I don't know if I could ask just kind of what your take on all this is and if you have any comments.
Yeah, I would say that you have the right, not you, applicant, but the planning board. You don't have to give the extension, but I think that he actually has a good case because it is DEM that is stalling it. But if the plan comes back extremely different, then I think there's a possibility of the board going back to master plan and going through the process again. But it depends what DEM, what the plan is.
The only thing I'll say about that is that I think RIDEM is going to approve the plan as designed. The engineers are, it's a nationally famous firm, GZA. I've known them for many years. I've worked very closely with them, and they generally know what they're doing. So I think that all of that will be fine. And as I said, the main change, other than the improvements to comply with RIDOT, was to actually eliminate any commercial use of the 1.5 acre lot at the bottom. So in some respects, the impact has been reduced.
I would like to.
Travis, can I get Travis to comment? Sorry, Peter, I'll get you in a second. Travis, do you have any comments on any of this?
No, there's certainly nothing holding the board from giving the extension back. Certainly you guys want to, I understand what Stuart's saying. There's precedent and there's just ways of doing things, and you want to make sure that another applicant can't come back in the future and say, well, you can't cite to an old meeting where you said you weren't going to give another extension because you did it here. I would just keep that in mind when you do vote. Other than that, it is within the board's discretion to vote either way.
And I was looking at our revised subdivision regulations that we did, and it said for good cause extending this time for recording can go for an additional period. So I think it's written that, you know, the vesting periods are established, but if an applicant can provide a good cause or a good reason why they need further extensions, you know, the board takes that into consideration.
Absolutely.
I'd just like to make a comment here, and then I've got a question for Travis. My comment is the final plan was approved in 2008. That's 12 years ago. DEM hasn't been holding this up for 12 years. My question to Travis is this. Could you please comment on Jennifer's comment about, we as a board have an opportunity to call the applicant in if there are significant changes to the plan as opposed to what was approved back in 2008. To what extent, legally, what is the precedent in the state of Rhode Island for requiring further action by the planning board if a plan has been substantially changed? And I'm hearing that this plan is being substantially changed, maybe to the better. But as planners, don't we want to know about that? So, Travis, what are our rights?
Certainly,
as a planning board.
Substantially change is subjective, but certainly there's going to be another meeting. Let me deflect one question to Kevin before I answer that. Kev, do you know how the plan is being changed and how much and what exactly is going to be changed?
Well, I do, but there's no change to the plan with respect to the number of units or the location of the buildings. This is strictly a drainage issue and whether the pond is a certain size. The ponds are generally where they were originally located. They've added a couple of ponds. These are engineering technicalities. The only significant change is the commercial lot at the bottom, the 1.5 acre lot that we had intended for commercial use. And from what I've heard about how that area is exploding with all of the approved developments that are apparently in the pipeline, that would have been great. But unfortunately, the only way we could meet the new regulations on the drainage because of where the water went and is to retain it on site and bleed it into the RIDOT system. So the change is not significant from a planning board standpoint. It's simply an engineering standpoint on the drainage.
Stuart, when the board first approved the plan, it was contemplating a commercial lot at the bottom. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Yes,
that was long before my time.
Okay, but you're saying a substantial change is something you're going to want to review again at some point. I'm just preliminary.
Well, Jennifer told us that if there is a substantial change, she didn't define what substantial meant. She simply said if there's a substantial change, then the planning board can call the developer back in, maybe for an amendment to the final plan. That would be the process. It would be an amendment to the final plan.
Right.
And so what will trigger that? What would trigger us being able to say, we require the developer to come back before the board requesting an amendment to the final plan? I personally don't think that engineering is just a mere technicality. We've seen time and time again in this town that bad engineering leads to very bad things happening to the town of Tiverton. So Travis, could you please tell us what would give the planning board the ability to tell Mr. Gillis, sorry, you're going to have to come back before the planning board with an amendment to your final plan?
Well, the plan has already been approved as it was. So Kevin, if Kevin needs to amend his plan, he has to come and get it amended.
Again,
but what would trigger the amendment?
Yeah, wait a minute, let Jennifer talk.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read where I got this from. This is from subdivision Regulations, Section 25-50, changes to recorded plans and plots. For all changes to the approved plans of land development or subdivision projects, an amendment to the final development plans is required. Yes, et cetera. Requests for changes to land development or subdivision plan may be approved only by the planning board. And if the requested changes are considered major by the board, must follow the same review and public hearing process required for approval of preliminary plans as described in section 23-31 and 23-32.
If you don't mind me just adding, this is a stormwater issue. I'm not draining onto the city streets. I am not changing the any burden to anything else related to planning board concerns other than the stormwater. And that goes into the RIDOT system. And it's a RIDOT issue or a RIDEM issue. And they're the ones that are now approving that. I'm not affecting anything to do with the number of units, the traffic, the number of turns or anything like that, or the landscaping or the structure of the buildings, location of the buildings or the use of the buildings. All of that remains the same.
May I?
It's identical.
Please.
All right, Peter.
Because I'm not familiar with this. It is 12 years old, as Stuart has brought to our attention. But it sounds to me, and from what the regulation was that Jennifer just read to us about land use, if the original facing lot on Main Road was zoned for a commercial use and for commercial development, then that is a change. And it's not about water. It is about the use going from a commercial use to now a retention pond. And that's on our main road, which with the new regulations around our overlay and the comprehensive plan, which Stu also referred to, is not compatible. So it makes me very uncomfortable. I don't have a plan in front of me. I don't know what the proposed changes are, but I can clearly understand that a change in use from a commercial to now a retention pond is significant and different. And I would also like to see the notes or the minutes, which I do not have as a new member, that stated that the last extension was the final one, because that gives me cause to say, then we're a board that is not keeping our own promises. And that would also bother me personally.
Peter, I'd like to, Sue, I'm sorry, I'd like to read the June 4th meeting notes.
Okay.
And it starts with Ken Gillis, Northborough Capital Partners, LLC, was present on behalf of the petition and the request an extension of Bayview Condominium final plan approval, vesting period. He had submitted in writing for the file a request for 1 year extension and a check for the required fee. The Rhode Island Department of Transportation, RIDOT, had requested additional maintenance information that necessitated the extension. So they had a year. Is this the same engineering request that you have now, or is this a totally different one? And then after that, it says, Ms. Gill noted that this request would be the final extension allowed by the planning board. Ms. Ever inquired any renovations of the property. Mr. Gillis responded that none had been performed and it was not necessary. So are we talking about RIDOT hasn't gotten back to you in over a year, or is this a totally new situation that RIDOT's looking at?
It took a long time for RIDOT to sort out what their system consisted of. And because RIDOT generally doesn't do their own engineering, they were waiting for a third party that was doing the engineering to finish it and make it available to us. Nobody knew where the water went down there, including RIDOT. So this firm Tetra Tech apparently did all of the engineering and figured out where the water went. When RIDOT made that information available to us, we completed our final plan. And I'm not so sure that going from a potential commercial use and whatever would be permitted under that particular zone, and that zone has actually changed since our original approval to a really a non-use as a detention pond is so much a planning board issue because we're unplanning,
It's
so
a
to
land
speak.
issue. So yes, it is.
Okay.
Sorry to go in circles. I think, well, when I said that a year ago, I don't think I misspoke, but the basic extensions are what they are. But it does say in our regulations that if the planning board deems to, for other extenuating circumstances, to give additional time, we do have the authority to do that. Although it just clearly states, it does give finite number of times and that are allowed. So I think within that framework, we do have that ability to grant additional time, if the board decides they want to do that. Whether these changes are significant, I think we only are going to know is when we have a plan before us that DEM has approved. And I think it's only fair to this board and to as the applicant to know then we can see where we want to go with it. If we're saying that these are still within the framework that we can approve based on what you previously submitted, or if we feel that additional discussion has to go forward. But I think we don't know that yet because we don't have the old plan versus what DEM is going to approve going forward. So, maybe to be fair, or I don't know, to go back to the 6-month extension, that'll give Jennifer some time to do some research on this application. Hopefully you'll have something from DEM or DOT by then, and we'll be able to move forward with this one way or another. But it seems like from what's in our regulations also for amended plans, regardless, it would have to come back to the planning board, whether it's considered insignificant or significant for us to approve it. Because as a board, we have to approve it and the planning board chairman has to sign the plan. And I think I would only feel comfortable doing that if the vote of the board is behind it. So that's kind of where I am with this to move it along.
So I would like to make that in the form of a motion that we give them a 6-month extension. That way it will give us time to look at it. I know some of us haven't even seen the plan. Peter, maybe Paul, haven't even seen, especially with this new plan coming up now. So I think if we give them a 6-month extension, that would satisfy both the planning board and hopefully Mr. Gillis.
Anybody
It
else?
won't satisfy me, Dave. I voted for a 1-year extension 1 year ago simply because the chair said this would be the last extension.
Right.
Words have meaning.
Anybody else? How do you feel about this at this point?
I think the comments that Stu made were excellent. I had issues. I sat there 12 years ago or whatever it was, probably more than that, and had concerns then. And that was also about contamination, about the water, about the traffic. And to hear someone say we may not need a traffic analysis, I think we should look at that again, because having been up Hayden Avenue yesterday, I mean, speed has just increased in that area.
I have to agree with both.
Travis, that's a question based on when his final plan was approved. I'm not clear. Does he fall under, for a lot of these things, under 2020 rules, or does he fall under the 2008 rules? I mean, which are we, I guess, looking at his plan in relation to 2008 or 2020?
The other thing is that you can't create a lot with a pond or a detention pond on it. And this is what's happening.
Susan, when the new stormwater guidance manual was adopted in 2015, it was not subject to tolling. So everybody every project, no matter when that project was given final plan approval, if that project hasn't been built yet, it is subject to the 2015 stormwater manual, which requires no net increase of stormwater runoff from the property. So so if that was your question, that's my response to it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
a motion on the floor. I don't believe it's been seconded.
Did Dave make it you made it as a formal motion, Dave? For
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was a formal motion. Okay, so back to the form. Is there a second on that? I guess we need that. I'll second it for better discussion. I don't know if Jennifer or Travis have any other thoughts that they could give us on this before we take a vote.
The only thing I wanted to say on this is what's before the board right now is an extension. We got caught up in a lot of conversation about things that are not before us today. So when you guys are voting, it's strictly on an extension and not on whether or not there's a significant change. We don't know that right now. We're not going to know that until it comes before the board and an amendment is requested. So certainly get Stuart's statements and also Rosemary's about not giving another extension when there's already been a vote to not give another extension. I get that, but before us today is just an extension.
Right. And I guess it's a matter of where everybody feels on it. If these are considered like extenuating circumstances, why his reason for requesting the vote based on the delay at DOT or DEM in engineering, which are issues beyond his ability to control. You think that's fair and reasonable? If you don't, I mean, the option is if we deny this, then that means his plan to recording of his plan will expire as of June 30th. So that means if he either, he can't record it if he doesn't get the final approvals. And if he doesn't record it, that means his plan expires and he has to start all over again. And I don't know what all implications will come from that, which you have to take into consideration. So I think we should call for a vote and see how it falls out. So I'll go down the list again. Just hold on a second because I want to record the.
What are we voting on first?
The 6-month extension to
Thank you.
December 30th, 2020. So Paul?
Oppose.
No. Janice?
Going to abstain.
Okay. Rosemary?
Opposed.
Stu?
Opposed.
Susan? I vote yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Peter?
Opposed.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have 4 no's and 2 yeses. So it's 2, 4, 1. So the motion fails. Mr. Gillis? I don't know what to tell you. As far as going forward, I would say whatever you decide to do, you should get in touch with Jennifer, the administrative officer, and then she can inform the board going forward. Okay?
Well, clearly I'll be suing the board, and our attorneys will hand that because this has obviously been arbitrary and capricious, but that's the way it happens.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just let us know where to go from there, okay?
So I have a question.
Okay.
The vote was 4-2.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 4 no's, 2 yeses, and 1 abstain.
I remember going through this on another vote, and that's not the majority of the planning board, correct?
I know that's for approvals of development. I don't know if it applies to this situation or not. Travis? Can you help us out here? Travis, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Susan,
Well,
can you?
so you're saying it was 2 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstain. So a majority of the planning board is 5. So my understanding is for approvals of developments, you have to have a majority of the full complement of the board. I don't know if that applies to this particular situation or if a simple majority will carry this.
I must admit, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to have to check with, have to look into that. I would assume, given the impact of this vote, that you would need not a simple majority, but I'm going to have to check on that.
Okay, so what do you advise we do in the meantime?
Let's just, is there a way that we can put forward our vote the way it is tonight and then conditioned on it being researched and a memo being provided?
You lost me there. Say that again. I'm not sure what you're saying.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm just not sure what you're saying. I guess it's not registering what you're telling me.
Well, we have the vote. We don't have a full board today. Whether or not we can't get the full board together tonight, no matter.
Right.
So we've had our vote. We've had our quorum for tonight. Whether or not it's sufficient to deny the motion is really something that I need to check in on. I need to talk to Michael about, but I'll give him a call. But right now, it still doesn't change the fact that we've had our vote and this is where we stand right now. And we can have an answer, Kevin, to you tomorrow morning.
Is it too late for me to speak and provide a little bit of input?
No, you can go ahead.
Well, Chairperson Gill, when she mentioned that this would be the last extension, I think we were all hopeful at the time that it would be the last extension needed. I think it was more of a comment at the last minute than really she was trying to lay the law down, but I'll let her speak for herself. You know, on the one hand, I know you want this done. You want this over. You know, you're putting the feet to my fire and saying, why can't you get this done? Why can't you get this done? And on the other hand, we want to start the process over again. And you want to look at, you know, start reviewing things. And it's kind of one or the other. Under the circumstances, maybe, and I've heard from a couple of the members that they have not even seen the plan. I'm not sure why, but you're voting on something that you haven't seen. I'm not sure if that's appropriate. Is it possible to have a shorter extension, which would give everybody an opportunity to see the plan, see the change in the detention pond, and which I've sent, you've had it in your possession for quite some time now, and just revisit the issue in a shorter time period, so you're not providing 6 months, but you can sort some of these issues out and everybody will have an opportunity to look at the plan.
The problem I think we have with that is we're not meeting again until next month.
Well, 90 days. I didn't mean, I'm not sure what I said. I think I meant 90 days. Make it as short as possible. I could come to the next meeting or the one after that. I don't know that I'll make a lot of progress with RIDEM. They can be so difficult. On the simplest of issues can take years. I know that from personal experience. And I use qualified consultants. It's just the way they operate.
Yeah, we have, I know I saw it a while ago, like one plan. If you have an electronic version, because how we have to do this now is, to get it out to everybody virtually, we'd have to send it out electronically. And if you have access to that, I mean, usually the engineers do it all.
When I submitted it to you, it was electronically.
Really? Oh, well, we'd have to go back through the emails and see if I'm not sure if that was when Bill Compton was here. I'm not sure who was in the seat then. So it would take a while to find. The way.
Guys, just so you know, sorry, Susan, I just looked into it. A simple majority is sufficient.
A what?
A simple majority is sufficient.
Okay. So the other possibility would be if the prevailing side, the people that voted no, would we consider even a 30-day extension to give the applicant the opportunity to make sure we all have a chance to look at the plans so that we're all talking from the same point to decide this, because this is a big vote with repercussions either way, really. So, if you want to make a motion, it would have to come from one of the people that voted no. If someone is willing to do that, to give him like a 30-day extension in order to see what he can come up with from RIDEM or RIDOT, and to get the plans distributed to the planning board so that whatever the vote is made from a point of more information.
Susan, I'd like to respond to that. My position is not that I want time to look at plans. I think that this project is so large and so strategically located in a very intensely developed or to be intensely developed area with big issues about traffic, and that's a health and safety issue, that what we need to do is not look at plans and say, okay, we understand the plans, go right ahead and build it. What we need to do is we need to go back to step one and take a look at this project at each step in the major land development process. And we need to pay attention to our own zoning so we just don't blow off a portion of our zoning that allows 52 units on a single lot, which is illegal under our zoning. I gave you the reference earlier. So, I don't want to see plans. I want to see this project come before the board again to go through the full process so that we can start making decisions based on our comprehensive community plan and based on all of the things we know about the neighborhood now that were not known back in 2008. Thank you.
Well, my final comment, if you will, is that I will agree if you give me a 30 or 60 day, might be a little more practical, extension. I will appear at the next plan with my engineers and with my attorney to try and make sure that everybody has their arms around the zoning waiver that was granted and why it was granted, and exactly what the implications of putting a detention pond on the lot that abuts Main Road. And if you want to deny it at that point, fine.
The other thing I would be interested in is, if I don't know if people want to see plans, but I would also be interested to review the minutes of the meetings to know why the planning board back in 2007, 2008, what their thinking was and why they approved this all the way through master, preliminary, and final plan, for us to come forward now and deny it without having done that full review of either their thought process, the things they looked at, and what the plans are. I think it is a bit unreasonable for us to deny it without that additional information.
And the only thing I'd say to that is Travis just counseled us earlier that none of that information is what is before us today. The only thing that is before us is an extension request.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
through the chair, a question for Stu. I think, Stu, your original objection to moving forward was the extension and not the plan, I believe.
Exactly.
All right, I guess we'll ask is if any of the people that voted no are interested in revisiting this vote or not, to give a 30 or 60 month or 60-day extension to this applicant to return with more information. There's no one? Okay, I guess that's how it stands, Mr. Gillis.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Okay, moving on. Do we have Mr.
Barboza?
Oh, Mr. Barboza. So what I will read in, okay, this is Robert and Colleen Barboza, time clock extension of preliminary plan, Barboza Estates, 2-lot minor subdivision, plat 510, lot 109, 267 King Road, north side King Road, west of Cornell Road, R80 zoning district review and possible vote. Time clock expires May 29th, 2020. That was, for people that was a 2-lot minor subdivision. I think Mr. Barboza didn't have the IT ability to be online with us tonight. He had requested a 90-day extension. His application is still with DEM also. But what he did was he had requested it in May. Given the fact that we didn't have a meeting in May, I contacted when I was still, I don't know what month it was, April. Anyway, when I was still the administrative officer, I contacted Mike Marcello and asked him how we could handle this because we weren't having a meeting prior to the expiration of his time clock. He at that time authorized the administrative officer to administratively extend the time clock, but then have it come before the planning board for a vote when the next time we met, which is tonight then. So what Mr. Barboza is requesting is a 90-day extension to go to August 26th, 2020 on his application. If anybody has any questions or comments on this.
So he submitted the request on the 29th of April, which was my first day. And so I accepted it on the solicitor's recommendation.
Is this the first extension on the time clock for this gentleman?
Well, yeah, this is a time clock. His time clock for his preliminary plan application. Right. I mean, it's over a year, but there's been issues with it. That's still at DEM. So he was the one, I hope you recall, he came to us. Then eventually he ended up, DEM required him to go to zoning to get the zoning variance before we could consider his DEM request because he was still in the wetland buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we get the DEM permission first and then we send it to zoning. So this is kind of a different process. So he came to us, we give a positive recommendation pending the outcome of DEM to zoning. Zoning granted the variance that he was requesting. Now that has gone to DEM. So we're waiting for DEM to give him approval. When he gets that, then he will come back to us for preliminary plan approval of his 2-lot minor subdivision.
Okay.
So Susan, this is an extension that I can happily support. We've been working with Mr. Barboza on this all along. He's had problems not of his making. It's a simple 2-lot subdivision. So I will be happy to make a motion to extend the time clock to August 26, 2020.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Second. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all right, the vote, Paul,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
Stu,
Yes.
Susan, yes, Dave,
Yes.
and Peter.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody no? So I just have to do that. Okay, so that was passed 7-0. Okay. So we can let Mr. Barboza know, Jennifer, that his extension has been formally approved for his time clock. Okay, so do we have Dennis Talbot on the line? Do you know, Jennifer?
Well, I see a Susan.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, Talbot. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'll go to the next one. Hart Commons Incorporated, fee in lieu for an affordable lot, Bliss Homestead, plat 904, lot 120, affordable lot, north side, East Road, south side, 4 Rod Way, Old Farm Lane, R80 zoning district, non-quit pond watershed protection overlay district, subdivision approved 8/8/2006. Discussion and possible vote. Okay, welcome, Mr. Talbot. Can you hear us?
yes, I can. Good evening.
Great, okay. So why don't you just explain to the board what you're looking to do here?
My lot was supposed to be for an affordable lot. I've tried to work that out. I've used Church Community Housing. I've tried to work with them. They've never found anybody that was qualified, and I have a buyer for the lot, so I'd like to make a payment in lieu of to remove that from the affordable housing requirement.
Okay. Okay, and then I guess everybody has in their packet the minutes. It is the master plan, but it's where it discusses it. Does anybody from the board have questions or comments? Oh,
I'd just like to make a quick comment, Susan, that I believe this is the first fee in lieu application that has come before the planning board since we changed the affordable housing plan back a couple of years ago. I might be wrong. I see Jennifer shaking her head. This is a very good program. Church Community Housing supports this fee in lieu because very often they can't find qualified buyers, and lots that have been set aside for affordable housing never get developed at all. The fee stays with the town of Tiverton. It's administered by the state, but the state can't spend it anywhere but the town of Tiverton. And Dennis, I believe that the fee is $55,000.
Yes, I think that's right.
So this is $55,000 that the town can use for a loan for somebody who wants to fix up an apartment and then dedicate that apartment as affordable. So this is a good program, and I certainly support the request, and I'd be prepared to make a motion right now, keeping in mind that if we get a second on the motion, that there will be further discussion.
Well, I just wanted to review the process here because there's a couple of things you would have to do. And also Harbor Ridge was the first applicant that did that. I don't know if you recall, Doug DeSimone, he converted his 2 lots to fee in lieu. I don't know, last fall, I think. So anyway, so.
Yes, I had forgotten that. You're right.
Right. So the thing is on Dennis, on your final plan that's recorded, it is designated as an affordable lot. So what the planning board would be requesting is that you submit a final plan Mylar that no longer has that designation, just for recording purposes. And that you also, just one sheet would be adequate just so that it updates, the recorded plan. And that your homeowners association agreement is amended that removes that. I think we had done up some wording. It was out for solicitor review, but we would want to have that formalized as well. so that the affordable house lot no longer is incorporated into your homeowners association agreement. And then once you had those two items, you come back before the board, we could approve them. You have and you'd have an amended decision, an amended final plan, and the homeowners association document all to be recorded. And then once you have those, I would think that would take you too long to pull together. Then we would forward that with a letter to the building official acknowledging that you're eligible for the fee in lieu. That's where the funds get paid. And at this point in time, they don't go to the state. We have a specific account that the treasurer holds. So the funds would go to the town of Tiverton. But then either the building official or Jennifer would work with Church Community Housing or somebody in order to distribute those funds. So you understand what the ask is here?
Yes, I understand. And is there suggested language to make this change, or you've been through it already?
Well, we had come up with a suggested language, amendment to the homeowners association agreement. It had been forwarded to Mike Marcello. We just haven't received it back or any additional comments. It's just a matter of updating the language in your homeowners association agreement so that the reference to the affordable house is no longer in there. Okay. So we could provide you with that, but you just need to do the Mylar and then electronic version, a Mylar, and I don't know. And Jennifer can tell you how many sheets if she wants paper copies, but she can direct you if she wants just a single sheet. It's just a matter of, it does have it on the recorded plan that it is an affordable lot. So it just for a future reference, it should be removed.
There is an issue that if Travis can clarify. So in 2018, they changed the zoning to allow fee in lieu of. And this project was before that. But in the zoning, it says that it is supposed to happen at the public information meeting at the master plan. So, and it's supposed to be given to Rhode Island Housing. This is all in the zoning. So I'm not sure how we can go forward with that, if that's okay.
I believe you can. Essentially, the 2018 ordinance is basically giving the applicant a right that he didn't have in 2015. And because it's something that he now does have available to him, it's within the board's discretion to allow it to allow him to use that right. If it was a right that he did have or did not, you have to look at it this way. Rights that were not available in 2015 and are now available in 2018 are able to be used, versus if you looked at it vice versa.
Does the board need to vote the fact that we're going to keep it in town rather than, because the idea was, I think when this went to the council, that we thought that it would need their thinking was that it was going to need like a department or an entity in order to manage these funds. And they recognized that we didn't have an entity to designate as the affordable housing group, I guess an employee. So said, well, let's send it to the state. I guess the building official figured when Mr. DeSimone submitted his, that between he and the treasurer, they determined that they could set it up just as a designated account, a restricted account, and keep it in the town, and that it was, I guess, more involved in order to try and set it up with the state, with Rhode Island Housing. So I don't know if, we're okay with that, to just have it stay within the town, or if we need to do something more than that. I know
That's something that
Sorry, go ahead.
Now we can work that out post vote. I think we should first find out whether or not the board wants to approve the applicant's motion.
Okay. All right. Are there any other comments or questions by anyone?
I have this is Rosemary again.
Yep.
I have a couple things that I'd like to point out. Housekeeping. Actually, on the original plan, this lot was designated as lot 51C. And it says it's set aside. The assessor changed the lots. So tonight we're advertising it as lot 120. So when you change the plans, maybe you could put now or formally somehow so that it ties back. And there's also a notation on page note 14 on page 6. I think there are 7 plans in the land evidence books. So be careful.
Okay.
And the other thing,
Do you think he should change all of them?
no, it's only, just look it up. I think it's just beyond the 2 and on the purpose of the amended plan, wherever it's referenced. But Dennis, are you still there?
Yes.
I have another question. I took a ride up there. There's a good sized chunk of 4-rod way in front of this southerly portion of this lot taken out. Will that be graded?
I really don't know what you're talking about. And on the east side,
Yes.
Old Farm Lane,
Yes.
that's there's a drainage swale there, and that was carved out, and that's just an area for a turnaround. I mean, my subdivision's done and approved, and
Understand, but it doesn't 4-rod way. It looks like there's a good sized chunk on of it. It wasn't graded off.
there's drainage there just above that, and
Really?
yes, there's a drainage easement right through there. I've got a culvert under the road there.
Nope, I'm talking about 4-rod way itself.
Yes, on a 4-rod way, just above Old Farm Lane and to the east.
To the east.
Yeah.
And you're still getting drainage out on East Road.
That's been a problem from day. No, but that doesn't come from my land. That comes from above my land.
Mm. All right, so do I have a motion to go forward with his request for the fee in lieu? I think that's where we're at with this, and then he knows what he needs to do in order to bring it back to the board for final recording. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We got Paul, second? Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? So all we're doing at this point is giving him permission to change the affordable lot to a market value lot. And then he'll come back to us with the proper plans and homeowners association agreement before he gets to record that. Okay. All right, Paul, I'm going to defer the vote. Yes. Janice?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
All right, Susan? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
All right. All right, so, and anyone against? No. So the vote is 7-0. Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Jennifer will be in touch.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Wait till we go to
Joe, do you yes, if you want to stick around for the escrow schedule. Maybe we'll do that next. Okay. Number 7, administrative officer report. So in your package, you have the 2 reports that I had filed. I don't know if you'd received them, and then Jennifer's from this month. And also I thought this would be a nice time for Jennifer to give a brief introduction of her background and expertise to the board. So I'll turn it over to her.
Sure. Thanks.
Yep.
I guess I'll just go through things that I've done so that you get an idea of what I could do for Tiverton and my experience. So I have a master's degree in planning, and I started working in the Fitchburg area, but lived in Rhode Island, commuted, worked there for 22 communities. I worked on a small town economic development plan when I was there. And then I got a job in being the city planner of Woonsocket for 5 years. And that was great. Actually, I won an NEA grant for placemaking. I also got a grant from the state to write a downtown rezoning plan that they implemented to try to revitalize the downtown there, which is coming along very slowly, but you know how planning is. And I also won a recreation grant as well. I decided to go to be a consultant for a couple of years. I believe the Cecil Group did some of your comp plan. That's where I worked, and I worked with them on the Main Street downtown plan. So I knew them, and I went up there and I worked a couple years, and it was a little, 60-hour weeks and commuting, and so I wanted to come back to municipal planning. And then I worked in Foster for a couple years as the town planner. I'm still helping them a little bit after hours, and I was able to get them also a recreation grant as well. And I've just recently put together their solar ordinance. I've written a lot of different ordinances. I've gotten grants. I'm excited to be here. I'm still looking through the comp plan here with a fine-tooth comb kind of thing, writing down notes, like 12 pages of notes on it, and going through the zoning as well. So if you have any questions, I know you weren't able to interview me. Only Sue was there, so.
I mean, if anybody ever has a chance, they want to come by and speak with her, I think.
Welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm offering you up.
Yes.
But, it'd be nice. It's nice to meet her in person and just talk to her about, areas that you are interested in, or, if you have ideas for projects. Not that she needs more projects, but, because she is functioning as the town planner also. So she is at the beck and call of council, town administrator, and every other commission in town. So we're going to hold her close to the vest here.
I would love to meet everybody.
Yeah, it'd be nice to put faces and more than faces, the rest of your body together. So, does anybody have any questions for her?
You really want to see me again?
I'd just like to say congratulations on the grant that you wrote for Tiverton.
Oh yes, I forgot about it. Yeah, so the state is part of the community development block grant. They're giving away to low income businesses $5,000. We haven't had that. We've had maybe 6 or 7 businesses interested. They haven't really gone forward. I'm not sure they fit the criteria, but the state is actually looking. They had really restrictive criteria, and they said that they were going to loosen it up depending on how many people applied. But they did give $50,000 for Tiverton to give in $5,000 chunks. So I'm hoping to hear from the new looser restrictions so that we can give that.
Terrific.
So Jennifer, welcome to Tiverton, and I love to hear about grant writing, because that's something that that we really shouldn't overlook. That's free money if we can get it. Just one quick comment. You're the AO as well as the town planner. And as AO, you have it within your responsibility to grant administrative subdivisions. These are subdivisions that are simply mergers of lots or changing a lot line without creating a new lot. For the most part, these administrative subdivisions are not controversial, and you can go ahead and do it. But we have a long tradition here in Tiverton of the AO sharing that information with the planning board before you actually make a final decision, because every so often we'll come up with an application that does prove to be controversial, and you might not know all of the where all of the dead bodies are buried to really know if a administrative subdivision is controversial or not. So if you would be so kind, please call those applications to our attention. So, so then you'll know if it's not controversial. You can go right ahead and grant the subdivision. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right, let's move along. All right, next items are the approvals of minutes. So we have 3 sets here. So if anybody has, the February 4th minutes were pretty lengthy. I don't know if anybody has any comments or edits. The only one I noticed, I don't know why, going on page 9, when I looked through it today.
In the February?
Yeah. I don't know why. The 3rd paragraph, the 4 corners, there's a line that's in italics. I think that can go back to regular. I don't know why that would be in italics. So before that draft gets finalized and sent in, just convert that out. So I don't know if anybody doesn't have any other corrections. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve February 4th with the correction on page 9.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Oh, who is that? Peter? Okay. All right. All right. We have to go through the vote. Paul? This is the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Janice?
Yes.
Rosemary? Rosemary, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Stu?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
All right. And any against? No. All right. So 7-0.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to approve March 3rd.
The March 3rd minutes.
Second.
All right. Nobody has any comments. Okay. So wait a minute. That was Dave and was that Peter to second?
Yes.
Second. Peter. All right. So we got to go through the vote again. Paul?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Rosemary?
Yes.
Stu?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
All right. And anybody against? No. 7-0. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve May 19th.
Second.
19th of May?
May 19th.
Yeah.
I have a couple corrections.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just in attendance, also in attendance was Christopher Carter, interim town administrator.
Okay.
And at the bottom, number 2, scheduled 6/2/20 at 6:30 p.m.
Oh, you want the meeting, when the next meeting was scheduled?
Yes.
June 2nd at 6:30?
Yep.
I'll amend that motion to correct Chris Carter and the schedule 6/2/20.
Interim town
Interim.
Okay.
administrator.
And,
Second.
all right, you have a second to the amendment, Paul? Paul, you amend this, you're seconding the amended motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the vote now, Paul,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
Sue.
Abstain because I was absent.
Oh, okay. Susan, yes. Dave
Yes.
and Peter.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Sorry. My battery is running low on my computer. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I'm gone. Am I off now?
No, you're still there.
Oh,
You're there.
my thing just says Zoom. That's all I got. I just got the letter Zoom. All right, well, that's fine with me. All right, we'll go to review of fees and escrow schedule. So I went through that. So what I put together was the columns, what we have existing now for fees. And then I went through what basically I think was based on the work that I've been doing as AO the last year and seeing what we've been doing on the planning board and kind of recalculating what I thought took more time or maybe less time in order to process and came up with that way. So, I mean, you'll see like a few of the items, maybe I increased, a couple I decreased, like on the final plan. I realized for a minor subdivision, I adjusted those downward on the major subdivision. I bumped those up, realizing the amount of work that goes into them just on the basic fee, not the lot per unit. And then today, talking with Jennifer, I realized that maybe we have undervalued the amount of time that would go into something that's major land development that's commercial based on the square footage. Like last year, I don't think we'd ever used these numbers before, so we hadn't really seen how they impacted the cost. So I'm proposing now, instead of the $200 per square foot for master and preliminary plan, to bump those up to $500 per square foot, per 500 per 5,000 square foot. And for the final plan, to increase that to $250 per 5,000 square feet. And then on the back side, I kept development plan review the same. I did bump up the environmental review statement to $250. I didn't want to make it too much, but I know we do spend a fair amount of time on these. I did decrease the cost for amended final plan and extension of vesting period, because the ones I've seen coming before us really, they require some time, but to ask for $500 did seem like it was getting to be a bit high. And then since we never do a reinstatement of application, I did knock that one out. The recording of decision and the recording of plans, fees are set by the state, so we can't adjust those. I don't know if you want to discuss and vote on those first, or if you want me to go through the escrow, or if Joe, if you have any comments on the escrow numbers that I was proposing.
Yeah, I'm looking at this again. When I looked at it the first time, I think I read it backwards. Am I seeing a decrease in escrow amount from 2019-20 to 21, from 10,000 down to 5,000?
Yes. I mean, I figured we can always ask for more, but rather than ask them for that amount as initial outlay, I guess, unless you don't feel comfortable with that. I guess I was just looking at that as an outlay at the time of their application.
And you know, from that perspective, I don't think we have a problem with it. And, you know, as I said in the email to you earlier today, the price is, you know, based on an average simple subdivision or, you know, site plan review, that should be more than adequate. It's when we get resubmissions, after resubmission, supplemental information that we have to go back and review a second time. That's when those numbers, they just don't become reality anymore.
Right.
I mean, if it takes us 4 or 5 hours to do a review, we're said and done in 4 or 5 hours. The following day, if we get 5 new plans, well, there's another 3 to 4 hours that we're looking at it. And amending any report that we've written.
Right. Yeah, and I guess what I did was I realized that we don't have you review administrative subdivisions. That's why I deleted that item.
The administrative subdivisions, that's fine. I'm looking more at the major land developments and subdivisions.
Like the as-built plans, I bumped that up a little bit because I realized if you do a site visit, that does take more time based on the one that we did. And also the environmental review statement, I did bump that up because it seems like you always seem to be chasing applicants for additional funds to see if that would help.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, we did talk about the environmental review. Again, if it's a single lot, something, a 5-page document or, 10-page document, we can do it certainly within 4 hours or, $500. It's when we get the 20-page document with all the supplemental information that it's going to take a little bit longer.
Right. All right. Okay. All right. Does anybody have questions? Or...
So I have 2 questions.
All right. Go ahead.
Are these comparable to all our neighboring towns?
Last year I did a fairly extensive review of maybe 8 or 9 comparable size communities. And when I went through it, I basically looked to see how they had set it up. And I think for most part, I kind of took the average. I didn't take what the lowest ones were. I didn't take the highest numbers. I took whatever the mean was. But then the reason I adjusted these this year was based on just, I guess, experience again, going through the time that we put into these applications and realizing that maybe we either overvalued or undervalued the amount of time that they actually require. So some of these numbers I adjusted based on just our practical experience.
I think they all look good. The only other question I have is the traffic review.
Yeah.
Why did we go to 0?
Well, I think, a while back, I think it was when we had the Tiverton Heights project. We threw that in because there was a fairly extensive traffic review and all that. But I think, that doesn't really come up as an independent item. So it really would fold into any review they do for traffic would fold into their escrow under like a major land development or major subdivision anyway. That I figured that would incorporate into that instead of adding an additional. I mean, we haven't ever applied it. We haven't needed it. And it probably, if they did, Joe could probably answer if they did do an extensive traffic review, it would probably be a lot more than $1,500 anyway.
Right.
So.
And I agree. And I'd have to go back and look at our scope and contract with the town. I think if it's an extensive traffic review, we actually request a traffic engineer. We bring in a sub-consultant to do that work.
Oh, okay.
So we would have they'd be negotiated or at least, put forward before we signed a contract so we'd know exactly what we need in escrow. I'd have to go back and look at the contract to see exactly how it's worded.
Okay.
Simple traffic reviews we can do, but when you start getting into some of the, if you're working, with state roads and signals and stuff, that's beyond what STEER actually has the ability to look into.
Okay.
So I just have one more question. I want to just back up on all those approval of the minutes. Are we going to get hard copies of those with the corrections?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you want them electronically, you can let Tara know you only want them electronically. If you want paper copies as well, I guess you can indicate that. Or she'll do paper copies unless you say only the electronic are fine. I think that'll help her.
I'll take paper.
Anybody can communicate that to her. So how this works for people who haven't been here before. So what we do is we'll take a vote on these. Once we approve them, then they get submitted to the council. They have to hold part of their public hearing process because these are under fines and fees that they annually have to renew. So then this would go to the council, get presented to them, and they have the final vote on this. So when it's presented, they still have the prerogative to adjust these, but we will present it to them, and and then they go into effect, but they don't go into effect until the council votes to approve them. So I know they've been in the process of doing some of these. That's why I wanted to get them to them in a timely fashion. So I don't know if people feel more comfortable if you want to vote on them both, the fees and the escrow, or if you want to vote on them independently. I don't know, Stu, do you have a preference?
I'll make a motion to approve both.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Fees and escrow as presented. Let's see, wait a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all right, roll call. Paul?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Rosemary? Rosemary, did she say yes? Did she mute?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Stu?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Peter?
Yes.
Okay. And vote no. Okay. All right. So I'll get a clean copy of that and we'll get it submitted to the council with a cover sheet. And hopefully, I don't know when they'll have to put it on as a advertised public hearing. So I think that's all we have for tonight. That's great. We got through it. So our next meeting is it, I don't remember how close it is to the holiday. Did we delay it or is it going to be July 7th? It is July 7th.
It's July 7th.
So it's the Tuesday after the 4th of July weekend.
Yes.
I don't know. Every day is the same now anyway.
Good.
So, I don't know how many of you are back at work, how many are in your office, how many are working from home, but these are different times. So I know there's probably a couple things that may be on the July agenda. Hopefully things won't get too heavy. I don't know if we get too many big applications or public hearings, we may have to do 2 a month, or we may be here a long time. So anyway, we're still playing it by ear. And I think that's all. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
We'll move.
So before we adjourn,
Oh,
don't forget, we got some terms expiring. That's got to get on the council agenda. I
right.
don't know when the next meeting is.
The town clerk sends out notices to everybody when their terms are up for reappointment. So I know that's how we keep track of it, but
Got to get it on for the next meeting, and some of us won't be here for July 7th.
I think in the past, Dave, the person stays on until they're replaced. We had a former member that was like that, Carol Guimon, if you
Okay.
recall.
Oh yeah, she did that, I think, by choice. I don't know if people are actually obligated. We'll find out for sure.